Okay, we are watching Brazil at War by the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. And this was published in 1943. So Brazil at War, I think this means World War II. I don't know Brazilian history well enough to know whether or not there was another war in Brazil that I should know about, but I think this is about World War II. Brazil at War, though, I've never really heard about Brazil's contribution to the war effort. I don't know if that's because there was none or because I'm just an American and we only ever hear about America's contribution to the war effort. So this should be interesting. This should be cool to see what Brazil was up to during 1943. So I guess let's just get into it. Okay, the United States government presents Brazil at war. That's a funny way of putting it. The United States government presents, like usually it's like an agency or an organization. No, this time it's full sail. Only the United States government presents Brazil at war. This is odd. I wonder how much the US had to do with Brazil's war efforts. I'm just so curious about our country's relationships all the way back then. Is it like, it's hard to imagine. Like, did we tell Brazil to go to war with us, or, not with us, but like, did we tell them to send some people over to Europe with us, or what was Brazil's contribution to World War II? I guess I just have no idea whatsoever. So we're gonna learn. Again, I just want to say before we even start this that the fact that the United States government is presenting this means this is most definitely some form of propaganda. I don't know if it's like a maleficent form of propaganda quite yet, but we're definitely watching propaganda right now. An Office of War Information film. See, that that might as well say a propaganda film, if you ask me. An Office of War Information. Yeah, that is propaganda for you. Produced by the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. That's an interesting office, I guess. Inter-American Affairs. So I guess that means affairs between countries within the Americas, I imagine. The upbeat music though for wartime is so hilarious also. Just marching to war, listen to this, marching to war. To war.
Brazil has declared war and joined the United Nations.
Wait, United Nations? Oh, the United Nations in the war effort, not the actual UN. Okay.
Just what does this mean to the people of the United States and to our fighting allies?
See, this is so bizarre. So Brazil declared war on Nazi Germany, I guess. Dude, look at this good old footage of the old Brazilian flag. I guess it's the same flag they have today. It's just like this is some good stock footage for anyone who needs footage of old Brazil. You couldn't have asked for a better shot for that flag. I say that because I've made videos where I've gone into archive films like this, looking specifically for flags because I need them for, the video's purpose. So it's just funny. You see that shot of that flag, I would have been praying for that shot in another in another situation. So interesting to see Brazilian people though. It's just I don't know. It looks very similar to Americans. There's just no perceivable difference so far.
We have gained a powerful new...
Dude, I love this map though. Hang on. Let's just look at Paraguay. Everyone look at Paraguay real quick and ask yourself, why is it so small? Dude, look at freaking Guyana. It covers Suriname, it covers French Guiana, and all of this. That's so funny. This is such an old map. I mean, obviously it's an old map, but it's just it has all the old-timey quirks even. It's so good. Oh, the small Paraguay alone is fantastic.
Trend in Brazil. Brazil's territory covers 47% of the South American continent. 250,000 square miles larger than the United States proper.
Dude, see, that's crazy. Oh, this is even before we had Alaska. So Brazil was actually bigger than the US, which is crazy. I guess people don't really think about that, but Brazil really is bigger than the continuous US. I mean, we're bigger because we have Alaska, but without Alaska, Brazil's bigger than the US.
Larger than all Europe, excluding Russia.
What? That's crazy too. I didn't realize that. Brazil is bigger than all of Europe? That's nuts. Does that mean the US is technically bigger than all of Europe? No, I guess not, because Brazil's bigger than the US.
But let's look beyond the map.
I like how they included Iceland as Europe also, though. That's pretty funny. And they did include part of Russian Europe as well.
How can Brazil and her people help
Dude,
us
is this the Brazilian army? This is so funny.
win the war?
Oh, that is. Look at the mountain in the back. This is totally in Brazil.
Well, there are more than 45 million Brazilians.
45 million Brazilians, which, you know, there are a lot of Brazilians. I think there's like 200 million of them now. I'm curious what the ratio of Brazilian to like Americans was back then. Like Brazil seems like it was closer to America in terms of size and like, I don't know, possibilities back then. Like I feel like America has like full sail pulled ahead of Brazil in all, you know, forms, like economics, population, military, everything. But I feel like back then, the US and Brazil were probably like pretty evenly matched.
Which is a third of the population of the United States.
Dang, it was a third of the population of the US. So maybe not. It was a third. They had 45 million. So they had like, so the US had 135 million people during this time. I guess that's a lot, but so maybe it's not the same. So maybe now that the US has 300 million and Brazil has like 200 million, maybe Brazil has actually caught up to the US. I don't know though, because we've received a lot of immigrants, but maybe they have too. That's something I never really think about. Did people immigrate to Brazil rather than America? Probably. At least the Spanish-speaking people do. Not the Spanish-speaking people, the Portuguese-speaking people. My bad. But honestly, I bet it's pretty easy to get around speaking Spanish in Brazil.
We have been friends in times of peace as well as in times of war.
Like, if I spoke Spanish, I would rather immigrate to Brazil than America, at this time at least, because I feel like it would be easier culturally.
Once before, the people of Brazil proved their friendship for the people of the United States in a...
It is so funny just how similar Brazil and the US were back then. Like I don't know, they were just positioned in very similar ways. Like they had very similar histories, and I guess I've never really thought about Brazil as being like the mirror image of the US, but I guess it really is in a lot of ways. I guess it's the South American version of the US.
Time of world crisis. That was in 1917. The two peoples have much in common. Like ourselves, the Brazilians are very cosmopolitan in character.
Like ourselves, the Brazilian are very cosmopolitan in character. That's interesting, because I would not say personally that the Brazilians are like city people. I would say mostly they're like, I don't know. I guess not. I guess they're mostly like farmers. I guess they are very similar to the Americans. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not trying to say too many things about Brazilians because I don't know very much, but like I'm trying to express my impressions, I guess.
They are a progressive people with a constitution that guarantees protection to all workers and modern social...
Yeah, like I don't even know the history of Brazil. Like, do they have a constitution and everything? Like they must, but like, I don't know. Was there a revolution? Is there like a Brazilian Revolutionary War that I've just like never heard about before? Probably is, honestly. I bet there are so many angry Brazilians watching this right now, thinking I'm just some totally, dumb gringo, which I am. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm right there with you. If you're thinking I'm just some sort of dumb idiot, like I am, yeah. But not for long. I'm about to learn as much as I need to learn.
They are sturdy people from the Gaucho.
Dude, oh my God, the Gauchos. I was just about to say, that's so funny. The actual cowboys. Caballeros. Oh no, that's Spanish also. Whatever.
Of the great cattle ranches. The workmen on the rich coffee and cotton plantations. And the orange groves of her rich valleys and plains.
Yeah, it is funny because America and Brazil were very similar, but the things we were growing were so different, Like, I guess we grew oranges in like Florida and stuff, but like the actual climate of America and Brazil like couldn't be more different. Like Brazil is just like a tropical America, I guess.
To the city dwellers.
Dang, like look at this. Like I don't even know what this is. Is this agave? What the heck? Yeah, we don't grow these in America. Dude, this shot is not centered, and I bet it would have been so much better if this shot was centered.
These Brazilians are in the war all the way.
These Brazilians are in the war all the way. Like, what did Brazil do for the war? Like, I'm sorry, but like, what did they do? Like, what operations were they a part of? Like, were they in D-Day? Was there like a platoon of Brazilians landing on the shores of Normandy? Like, I don't think there was, but like maybe there was.
All males between the ages of 18 and 40 are now subject to military duty.
18 and 40, all men between the ages of 18 and 40 are subject to military service. That's wild. Did that happen in America? I don't think so. Maybe it did, though. Maybe it did.
An army of 3 million soldiers can be raised without affecting vital industrial activity.
It's just so crazy to hear them brag about how many soldiers they could raise without affecting industrial capacity. You know, like, is that really the priorities? I mean, it was the priorities, but like, is that really the priority? You know, like we could just kill like all these guys and like it wouldn't even matter. You know, it's just, I don't know. Oh dang, this is a good shot. The Christ the Redeemer up on top of this hill. This is definitely like the most iconic thing from Brazil though.
Brazil is a land of picturesque and beautiful cities. Its capital is famous throughout the world as a center of culture and the arts.
Dang, that's so funny that already, what year is this? 1943? Already in 1943, this beach was just covered in high-rise buildings. You know, like I bet it's even more so now, but to see it like already in this form is just, it's just mind-blowing. You don't realize that like this city has always had the character of huge high-rises against the beach. I don't know. It's just, it's funny.
Rio de Janeiro, which means river of...
It's just, I wonder, like, were people going on, like, tourism trips to Brazil? Like, would an American fly to Brazil to, like, go to the beach or something? Like, I'm curious. Like, how much was tourism a thing back then? It must have been a thing because there are, like, hotels and stuff on this beach.
Was named for the month in which it was discovered.
This is some great aerial shots of this city, too. Like, this is so, like, oh, man, I bet it's so different now. Like, I bet it's still city, but it's, like, it's probably way more dense now.
By a Portuguese explorer in 1531, nearly a century before the landing of the Pilgrim Fathers.
Dang, that's what you also forget, is that Brazil was settled, like, way before America. You know, like, the Portuguese were kind of the first ones, I guess the Spanish, but the Portuguese also were really exploring the world during this time. The Portuguese explored far more of the world than Spain ever did, even though Spain ended up finding America. It is bizarre to think that Brazil literally just got started like 100 or 200 years before the first settlers even arrived to America. That's just nuts. I guess, you know, we never think about that. America feels like the oldest country in the Americas. I guess it sort of is, maybe besides Haiti. But like the actual colony or the actual society that is there is older than the one in the US. It's something you don't really ever think about.
Today, Rio is a modern city of more than 2 million population.
A modern city of over 2 million population. Doesn't it have like 20 million people or something now? Probably not. That would be like too big. Probably like 18 million or something.
Its municipal theater is one of the finest opera houses in the world.
The opera house, let's see. They have a Toscanini. That's so funny. I wonder if anyone watching recognizes like this concert or this like, I don't even know. I don't know if this is like a singer or like an orchestra or what, but like, does anyone know who this artist even is? Oh, there down there it said Schubert. I think I know who Schubert was.
The Tiradentes Palace has, since January 1942, come to be known as the birthplace of hemisphere unity, for it was here that the 21 American republics drew up...
The birthplace of Western unity? That's interesting. So, hang on, what happened here?
Republics drew up the momentous Rio Charter, a far-reaching agreement of mutual faith, collaboration, and protection.
The Rio Charter, that's not like the Declaration of Independence or even the Constitution. They're saying like this outlined peace on the South American continent, right? Like the Rio Charter said nobody was going to fight with each other. Pretty ironic considering what Paraguay looked like back then. If you know what Brazil did to Paraguay, you would know that that statement means very little to the Brazilians.
Brazil's merchant fleet is the second largest of the Western Hemisphere.
The second largest of the Western Hemisphere, yeah, obviously behind the US, but it's just, I don't know, I guess I never really thought of Brazil like that, but I guess Brazil is like huge and it's super populated. It probably was like the secondary power in the Americas. I've never even, this might sound insulting, but I've never thought of Brazil as being like a powerful nation the same way the US is. I guess it is though. It's very populous and it is probably pretty rich too. So I feel like I never thought about Brazil in this light before. See, I'm learning so much about Brazil from this. I still don't know what they did in the war though. I don't know how that's going to play in, but it seems like Brazil was like really up and coming at this
Passed
time.
only by our own. And despite torpedoings by Axis submarines when Brazil was still at peace.
Dang, so Brazilian boats also got like torpedoed by U-boats or something? That's crazy too. Here in America, you learn about the Lusitania, I think it was called, and how, passenger boats even were being targeted by U-boats. But you never learn about Brazilian boats experiencing the same thing. So that's interesting.
These ships will prove invaluable in transporting raw materials to the United States.
What I really want to know is, did Brazil even like affect the war in any way? Like I can't imagine they did, but like they had some kind of contribution, and I just want to know what their contribution was. Because they didn't send those 3 million soldiers to Europe, you know what I'm saying? Like, they might have said they had that many soldiers, but that's not how many people fought in that war.
States and convoying military equipment to distant theaters of war. Her navy is not large as compared to those of the United States and Great Britain, but it is modern, splendidly officered and manned.
See, that is interesting. They didn't have a big navy, but they did have like modern ships. I wonder if they bought these ships like from the US or if they were building their own navy vessels.
And eager for action against our
It's just weird to think that like America has never felt competitive against Brazil. We've never... there's a world where like Brazil and America are like harsh competitors. Yeah. I just feel like that never happened. Like we were always willing to share stuff with Brazil, like sell them our army stuff. Like I don't think America has ever worried about Brazil being like a power even. Sorry to any Brazilians watching, but you ask any American, no American would ever say we're afraid of the Brazilian army, even though they got modernized materials, I guess.
These fine ships and fighting men throw the balance of naval power that much further in favor of the United Nations. Already
It's funny how they called themselves the United Nations, but before, it's not the Allied Powers, it's the United Nations. It's just, I don't know, it's just because the United Nations went on to become something else. It's just funny that that's the term they used. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just funny. It's funny that before the UN was actually a thing, people just called themselves the UN.
They have seen action against enemy raiders attacking our vitally important South Atlantic supply lines. We may
Our vital South American supply lines. So I wonder what resources we were getting from Brazil that made us so determined to be like on good terms with them. It was probably like sugar and coffee, if I had to guess, but I don't know.
Confidently expect that the Brazilian Navy will live up to the high standards it set.
Are these marine mines? That's so funny. I also thought that was something that was just like in
For
cartoons.
itself in the First World War. Backing up its navy is Brazil's large and rapidly growing air force.
Oh wow, the Brazilian Air Force. See, I feel like air forces were just becoming a thing in World War II, so it's pretty impressive that Brazil had its own air force too.
Splendid new airfields through the courtesy of our good neighbor.
Again, did these planes ever even see combat? I feel like no, but like I could be wrong. There could be like a huge contribution the Brazilians had for World War II that I'm completely missing, but I have trouble believing any of these planes ever actually saw action.
And ally are now available to our long-range flying fortresses and liberators. The efficiency of Brazilian fighting planes and the marksmanship of her pilots has already been admirably proven against marauding Axis submarines pursuing their campaign of terrorism.
Oh, that's cool. So they were actually using these planes to like hunt the submarines. That, you know what? That would be pretty cool. I hope they have footage or something of that, because that is like, that's an actual good use of this resource.
Off of her more than 4,000 miles of coastline. Getúlio Vargas, Brazil's progressive president, has long been an ardent advocate.
Brazil's progressive president. That's an interesting little specification that they sprinkled in there.
Of inter-American solidarity, military preparedness.
Dude, look at these tanks. These are hilarious. Nobody would take these seriously. Come on.
And hemispheric collaboration.
See, did those tanks ever see action? I doubt it. Maybe in Paraguay they saw action. Hang on. When was the Paraguay War, though? Wasn't that like in the 30s? I don't know. I feel like this is after that whole event.
Under his guidance, the Brazilian army has been rapidly increased, equipped, and trained in all the phases of modern warfare.
Well, that's good. That's good that this country is equipped in the tools of modern warfare. It's so funny to hear that sort of thing being delivered in like a positive, like, yes, like another country capable of waging like just insane amounts of war, like good, like another one. You know, it's like I would be saying this like, oh no, like the country is arming, like, oh my gosh, like they have so many guns, like the violence, the capacity for violence has increased exponentially. But no, in this circumstance, they're just cheering them on. They're just saying, yes, build more guns, have more planes, fight the Nazis with us.
Under his guidance, the Brazilian army has been rapidly increased, equipped, and trained in all the phases of modern warfare.
It's just like, great, another modern warfare, you know? As if the ability to wage modern warfare is like a good thing, you know? That's really what they're doing. They're positing that like a country's ability to wage gun and cannon warfare is like an aspect of its civility.
Brazil's total mobilization and training is already well underway toward that 3 million mark. And by the uncompromising public declaration...
Hang on, so this is 43, so was the U.S. in the war yet? It must have been, right? 42 was Pearl Harbor, I think. December 7th, 1942, I think, was Pearl Harbor. So this might have been like right after Pearl Harbor, actually. Maybe that's why, though. Maybe the U.S. jumped into World War II and we took all our boys with us. We were like, Brazil, you're coming with us. We're all in the war now.
Of its president, this army, as our fighting ally, stands ready to make any sacrifice which our collective security may require.
Geez, these were some crazy shots, though. These soldiers just running through these exploding mines. Was that necessary? Is this a real conflict, or are they like just, is this like for play, you know? Like, is this training? Because these are real bombs that are going off. Is these tanks too, like those are real landmines blowing up in front of these tanks. Like, I don't know if this is real war footage or if this is just like training, but either way, I would not like running through actively exploding minefields.
Under government supervision, Brazil is now manufacturing modern aircraft.
Under government supervision, they're now manufacturing modern aircraft. I wonder whose government? Like under American government supervision they're making these planes, or just the Brazilian government? I mean, it seems redundant to say that the Brazilian government is like overseeing the construction of their own military. It seems like you would only specify that if it was the U.S. government overseeing this. Again, you know, for them to be building planes this early is pretty impressive. So I think they must have needed some form of assistance from the U.S.
Other war materials are also being manufactured on production lines patterned after those of our own great plants. As an industrial country, Brazil ranks second to the United States in the Western Hemisphere.
See, again, Brazil ranks second in industrialization only to the U.S., which is, again, very interesting. Very, very similar stories between these countries.
And Brazil's fabulous resources and a great variety of important raw materials make her doubly valuable as an ally.
I love how they said the quiet part out loud. Like, the only reason we actually value Brazil is because of all the natural resources they have for us.
Brazil is the hemisphere's second largest producer of chrome ore, so important in the manufacture of high-grade steel. These war factories in the United States use large quantities of Brazilian manganese, highest grade iron.
Brazilian manganese. That's an interesting little, I guess, resource that we needed from them. I never would have guessed manganese, but it's just funny that, like, yeah, we needed Brazil for this one specific resource.
Nickel and other minerals essential to the manufacture of tanks, machine guns, warships, and other necessities of modern warfare. We need these raw materials to keep our war production plants going all out for victory. Brazil produces a large quantity of bauxite, from which the aluminum...
Bauxite? That's funny. Yeah, that's an ore that you mine for, like, aluminum.
...used so extensively in our combat planes is made. Brazil is the world's only source of high-grade crystal in substantial quantities.
High-grade crystal in substantial quantities? What sort of crystal? You can't just say that they're the only source of high-grade crystal in high quantities. Like, what crystal? What are we talking about here?
So essential in the manufacture of the electrical, optical, and precision instruments which have such a vital place in modern warfare.
Oh, that crystal. That's a big crystal, though. Is it just like quartz, or is it something more specific than that? This is some crazy crystals, though. You're right. You're right about that program.
She is also one of the world's largest producers of industrial diamonds, used in cutting the hard metal.
Dude, this is so crazy seeing them, like, sift out the diamonds from the freaking water. Like, I've seen a few people use the pans for gold or whatever, but this is like, yeah, this is industrial scale diamond extraction.
From which machine tools are made.
Dang, look how big that diamond is. That is a huge diamond.
She can produce enough of the basic material for making explosives to supply the entire world. We all know that Brazil leads the world.
Dang, I thought that shot for a second. We watched all these explosions, and then we saw this farm field, and I thought this whole field was gonna blow up. It was just a nothing shot. Nothing even happened in this shot, but, like, I was anticipating, like, the biggest explosion.
We all know that Brazil leads the world in the output of coffee.
Brazil leads the world in the output of coffee. See, I feel like I did say that somehow.
Far more important in wartime, the great jungle forest of the Amazon Valley is the cradle of the rubber industry.
I should have seen that coming. I thought they were going to say that the Amazon was, like, just, like, perfect, nature preserve or whatever, but no. Even the Amazon was necessary for the war effort because of the rubber production. I should have been able to guess that. That's Fitzcarraldo all the way, but, like, that is how we, organize the importance of these things, like Brazil matters because they have all the rubber.
In 1903, this area supplied more than 3/5 of the entire world's consumption of rubber.
Dang, 3/5 of the world's consumption of rubber came from Brazil. That is wild.
The seeds of rubber trees such as these, smuggled out of the Amazon country, shifted the rubber production of the world to the Far East. But that supply of this tragically important product is now among the spoils of war in the hands of the Japanese.
Dang, so hang on, let me get this straight. The Japanese smuggled rubber plant seeds out of Brazil and started planting them across the Far East in order to get around in order to get around the global market system because they were at war. Like, that's wild. But again, like, how much planting does that take? You can't just plant a seed and then harvest rubber, like, the next year. Like, you need, like, 10 or 15 years for those plants to get going. So I don't know if that ever paid off for them.
However, 1.5 million square miles of wild rubber trees in the friendly Brazilian Amazon basin is again being tapped to supply the needs of the United Nations.
Dang, and that's what rubber really is. That's rubber extraction right there. It's just some sort of sap pouring out of the bark. Pretty similar to syrup. It's so crazy that somebody even figured all this out.
Is again being tapped to supply the needs of the United Nations.
But that's funny, that's all it is. It's just a little dripping white liquid that gets turned into rubber.
Brazil's production of rubber alone may prove to be a decisive factor in winning this war.
That's interesting to think about. Brazil's capacity for rubber production was probably its biggest contribution to the war effort. That's all I'm going to say it. That's what I imagine was the case. I didn't get to see very much of Brazil's other contributions, but I have a feeling that alone, like, gave America so much strength, or gave the Allies so much more strength than they otherwise would have had. Every single vehicle needed rubber, you know?
Yes, Brazil brings much to the Allied cause. Not only the weight of her resources and manpower, but the militant spirit of her people and the reaffirmation of her friendship for the people of the United States. A friendship which we welcome with gratitude and which shall never be forgotten.
All right, that was interesting. It's interesting to see the US government reiterating our friendship with Brazil. You know, like that's not really something that the US government really does that much nowadays. I mean, I guess like, I don't know, not this US government, but like even just producing propaganda where we say Brazil is like a good friend of ours. I don't know, like it's very, very old school, I guess, to say stuff like that. But it was interesting. It's interesting to see how a country that had almost nothing to do with World War II was still being used in its entirety for this purpose. I guess I just never really thought about Brazil's influence on World War II. If you asked me, I would have said South America just sat that one out. I guess they sat both world wars out. But now we're learning that that's not really the case, that wars are not so much just soldiers as they are resources too. You know, like the fact that we had access to rubber and sugar and coffee and all that sort of stuff made us so much more capable of fighting than we otherwise would have been. So that's a fair argument that Brazil didn't really contribute through like force of men, which maybe it did still. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying that Brazil's probably biggest contribution was just helping out with the resource end of all this manufacturing and whatnot, which is interesting. Definitely, I don't know if I would have said that. Maybe I would have guessed it, but I don't think I actually would have known that for sure if you asked me before watching this, which is interesting. It's just, it makes you value the relationships your countries have with other countries differently, you know? Like before this, I would have said that America never really needed Brazil for much other than sugar and coffee. But it's interesting. I wouldn't have thought about rubber, but rubber is exactly what their purpose was in this whole war situation, I guess. I wonder what Brazilians have to say about this. That's really what I'm curious about. We didn't get to see or hear from any Brazilians, but like, I don't know. I wonder how they contextualized everything. Like if they thought like, yeah, I'm growing this rubber so that I can help the war effort or whatever. Or if they were just like, I am dirt broke and I need to pay my bills, you know? And I'm willing to cut these trees open and sell the white juice that falls out, you know? Like I'm so curious. I'm curious what things were like back then. I guess I always am. It's interesting. This is such an interesting window into something I never would have otherwise looked into, you know? I'm sure they did send Brazilian troops to the war effort too. I don't know what numbers they sent or anything, but I've never heard of there being Brazilian soldiers in Europe or in the Pacific for World War II, but I could be wrong. There could have been squadrons of them or something. But that's interesting. It's interesting that the United States government produced this too. Like, again, who was this being shown to? Was this being shown, like, on the news to Americans to convince them to support Brazil? Or was this being shown to, like, internal army generals to inform them as to how important Brazil actually was to our war effort? You know, it's just like, who was the audience? What was the purpose of this propaganda? It was propaganda. But I don't think there were really any true falsehoods. It was obviously trying to paint Brazil in a positive, you know, modern light, which it did very well. Obviously, there were probably parts of Brazil that did not look as modern as this, but you could say the same thing about the US at the same time too. So I would say this is propaganda, but I would not say this is like harmful propaganda in any sort of way, or at least not perceivably to me, at least. I don't know, man. I could be wrong. I could just be drinking this all up and not knowing it. But I think with that, if you enjoyed watching this and you would like to help support me, please check out the Internet Archive and consider donating. That's all I ask of you guys. You don't even need to subscribe, just donate to the Internet Archive. That's where I get all these videos from. That's what makes this whole operation possible. So with that, thanks for watching, donate to the Internet Archive, and I'll see you next time.